Hey, Toph, you play solo games, right?
I do.
Man, you must be a loser, lame, you don't have any friends. You're a nerd, dork.
Wait a minute.
Hmm?
Haven't you played like 30 hours of Oathsworn this month?
Yes.
And what, like 30 to 40 hours of Kingdom Death Monster this month?
Mm-hmm.
And all of that was played by yourself, right?
Oh, yeah. I guess I'm a nerd and lame and
And
dork.
Yeah, you are.
This and other stereotypes that we are going to debunk and why playing solo games is good for you.
Hello.
Welcome to Bad at Board Games.
Well, he's bad at board games.
My name's Brad Blake.
And I'm Topher Ferguson.
We're bad at board games, so you don't have to be. Everybody's happy that they're not bad at board games.
Everybody. I forgot what it was like. I really forgot. You have too much time.
Hello and welcome to tonight's show.
Why should people watch today?
Friends, stick around. As you can tell, Brad's going to be annoying the you-know-what out of me. Because we've gone back to the 1990s.
Somebody specifically asked for that sound. I have to give them their due.
To whoever you were, stop it.
Thank you for helping me annoy Toph.
So stick around. We are going to be sitting here talking a little bit about the stereotypes that exist for solo board gamers and kind of maybe breaking some of those stereotypes and myths and thoughts.
And why they're good for your mental health.
Yes, we'll talk about a few reasons why we think that solo gaming is a benefit to you and to us.
So stick around. We're getting into it.
Yes.
Toph,
Brad.
what are we talking about? How are we going to start this?
Yeah. So I thought the best thing for us to do, well, we kind of talked about this, was kind of just dive into kind of a discussion of what we feel the benefits of solo board gaming are. I don't think so much we're going to talk about the stereotypes, but maybe, you'll start to understand why we are both big fans of solo board gaming. Brad's kind of come around to that in the last couple of years, I think a little bit more than he did before. I've played solo board games for quite a while, and, we don't just like sitting alone, being loners, dorks, and nerds, although sometimes we are. But there actually really are some good benefits that we have found to solo board gaming, both in our lives and in general. So, Brad, do you want to start off with one of the big observations you have?
I think one of the things for me is that, it's a good stress release. I don't really think it's any different than working out. And I've been an avid, physical fitness person at different times in my life. And, with all the stress at work and home and kids and anything, being able to sit down and board games kind of help you're puzzling things together. So immediately when you're solving problems, you're kind of having to put that, you're not using the emotional side of your brain, which is, in a way is good. It's just helping you kind of like work things out and you're able to get in your own zone, and it kind of helps de-stress whatever you're going over. One of the things that I find about it. So
yeah. There's a lot that you just mentioned in that one statement.
Right.
I think we'll start maybe with unpacking a little bit of the first you said, stress reliefs.
Right.
I definitely see that myself. And those of you that have been watching the channel know that, like, right now I'm going back to school. And so I have less time on my hands. And that means that most of the time that I do have is pretty high stress, studying, writing papers, doing projects, and trying to work a job into that. And so for me, sitting down to be able to play a board game or even just a 15-minute card game is a way to completely dump my mind and, really kind of focus. And I think that's maybe something that you've discussed with that as being a good stress release. That you did that a little bit with Marvel Champions, I think.
Yeah, I like, I've got over, 125 plays now of Marvel Champions, and since I've got BGA and an iPad, now I'll play games at lunch with, but like I would sit down and play Marvel Champions at lunch a lot of times. So that's where I got most of my 125 plays in over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm assuming as an engineer, you probably have a little bit of stress at your job.
A little bit. we've got a lot of projects going on and trying to make them happen.
So that midday stress release is probably a good benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to play quite as much during the day. I wish I did, because my job can have high moments of stress. And I say high moments because it's usually a massive amount of something all at one time. It's not continual, always stressful, but like a high moment of stress. And I don't typically get that chance to stop midday. I wish I did, because it is good for your mind. But I work in a glass office, and when my students see me, they think that I'm available no matter what I'm doing, even mid-bite of a sandwich, and so they walk right in. So I don't get to do that quite as much at work, but I think that is a very valid thing in terms of why. I think that's actually maybe part of the reason why we play board games in general, right?
I think so. Well, and board games are great to have a group with, right? It helped me find you as a friend, right? You know, I started a meetup group, and I wanted people to play board games with, and so that was the whole reason. And I was buying board games, and I wanted to be able to play all the board games I was buying. So selfishly, I started a group to make sure I got through all the games I buy.
How'd that work out for you?
I still have games I haven't played yet, but I've got a lot more played than not.
We're also not going to admit how many games either of us have that are unplayed.
I have less than you.
You do. I will admit that. I will admit that. Hey, look, it's no longer the 90s. Now it's the 80s.
We're back to the 80s.
Yes. So
it's not the 90s either.
Well, it was.
The 90s are like 30 years ago.
Yeah, dial up.
Yep.
That was 30 years ago.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
That was.
I can count. I'm pretty good at counting. Actually, I suck at counting. I have a degree in math, but I suck at counting. So stress release was one of those. I think another thing that you talked about kind of in that long sentence was the regulation of emotions, or at least that's what I call it, regulation of emotions. But kind of, I think you mentioned setting emotions almost aside while you're playing the game.
Well, this comes, don't hold me to this, but I remember a long time ago, it's kind of like that whole fight or flight thing, and how the problem solving side of your brain can help in situations like if you're, I'm going to think of extreme cases, right? A fire or an accident or something like that. If you can get people to start thinking using their mathematical side of their brain, they start getting out of that, like beyond approach and calming them down. You can't just say like, calm down, but if you can like get people to start thinking about numbers and things, and the brain has to like use the other side of the brain, and it's not just being focused on the flight or fight response side of the brain, it starts to balance things out. And when you're puzzling things, if you're sad or you're depressed or you have anxiety or things like that, now games can cause anxiety because there's like, there's so much stuff, but like, you find something for you, but it helps. The math side of your brain is allowing your emotional side to kind of like come down. This is the best way I can explain it. And it may be, also because you're, for some people who like are introverts, that can be helpful as well. So
yeah, so Brad actually mentioned that a little while ago as we were planning kind of what to talk about today, and I'm big in theories, and I'm even more into theories right now because I'm back in an education program. I geek out on educational psychology and educational learning theories and student development theories. And I don't know so much the theory that Brad's talking about right here, but it does kind of make sense. Like I know I advocate for mathematics all the time. My degrees initially was in mathematics education, and liberal arts education is kind of dying out in the United States. And so I tend to be on the defensive of studying liberal arts education in general, but the math side of it, not just because I love math and taught math, the analytical thinking and problem solving skills that come through something like a mathematical thought process really is helpful in developmental things. So I won't go into the theories and who said them, but there really is, when you say that, or you bring that up, that it is regulating emotions, there's a process of learning how to, and not just learning how to, but practicing problem solving regularly will help you move through these moments of stress, for example, we just talked about that, but it'll help you kind of move through all these emotions in a way that does make sense. And it's something that I use all the time with my students. I don't use the math part of it so much, but this is kind of the other thing that I think is a big benefit of solo board gaming is the practice of emotions. As Brad said, some games really cause you high stress and high emotions. Some games make you angry. Some games make you quite sad. Some games are frustrating. Some of them just are high stress. Real-time games. If you play real-time games, it's that way. The more that we practice these things, the more that we are able to better do them when we're not in a board gaming situation, but in a real life situation where we get those emotions that come into it.
And this is where I pause and say, we are not psychiatrists. We're not psychologists. We're not educated in any way, shape, or form. I'm an engineer. I know engineering things. We are discussing this on our side of the fence.
I will say though that
so don't take this for like, oh, well, Toph and Brad said this. No. Any of you psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, then don't flame us in the comments, please.
Well, with that said, though, there are some legitimate things with it, and I do have quite a bit of study in developmental
No, I know. I'm just like,
but
this is a general statement I probably should have said before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this is also our thoughts and
these
what
are benefits that I see for myself, mainly, and my son, and and I wanted to discuss them with you.
Yeah. Yeah, but I agree completely with it. And I think that is something, there's actually some pretty cool studies that's going on with teachers, especially at younger grades, who are implementing board games into the classroom. And part of the big reason why they are doing that is not just for the fun side of it, because what we do in classroom is always going to be, or should always be, progressing learning in one way, shape, or form.
Right.
But they are doing that to be able to put children through these moments of teamwork, of communication, of regulating emotions, of problem solving, of all these things. And, we don't have to only do that in a classroom. We do that ourselves, even though we may not think about that's the reason we're doing it. It turns out to be a benefit that we have as being board gamers in this hobby.
Yeah.
So that is a big thing. And it's what I do every day. I don't use board games, but I do use games in a lot of my education and training that I do with students I won't go into the theories, but pushing people to the edge of their comfort zone so that they have to get into a moment of learning without pushing them so far that they get into what's known as a crisis zone. And so, that's developmentally at higher education. That's where students need to be to help them. So, but
anyways. And in the end, I think the stigma of it being like, oh, lame loser, stuff like that for board games, like, I don't understand why it's okay to sit there and play your MMO or, Cyberpunk's real big now, or I don't know what the newest video game is, but like, it's fine to sit there and play that. Oh, I binged it 48 hours straight and was able to beat the game. And like, there's no stigma there, and it can be a solo game. We're not talking online shooters or anything like that. But the minute you say board game, massive stigma.
There is.
Massive. Even within the board game community. Massive, huge, giant stigma. Look at all the board game Facebook pages, all the other, like the solo side of it is kind of hush. Don't talk about it. There's a few of us. There's not that many.
There's actually
there's a lot.
I was gonna say, there's probably a lot more than anybody realizes, because I think there is a big thing. I went through that. I don't know if you did, but I went through that when, especially before I got to know you, I didn't have a gaming group, and a good bit of that process, or that time just before I got to know you, was COVID. So I did have friends that I played board games with, and we would still occasionally get together and play board games, but that kind of went downhill a lot, especially at the height of COVID.
Right.
And so here I am with my board game collection, and I'm playing board games by myself. Now, most of that was Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Set it up. Nobody's going to be coming by my house. Who cares what my dining room table's covered with for weeks on end?
Right.
But yeah, I didn't mention that to a lot of people myself, that I played solo board games, because I internalized some of that, because that is, for some reason, that's the stigma. I've never been a video game player. I've played a few things here and there. I think the last big board game that I played was Mortal Kombat on Sega. So that tells you how old I am and how much I play video games. but there's no at all stigma when you say, oh yeah, I play video games. It's like, oh, that's the norm, at least here in the US, that's the norm.
Yeah.
But when you say even just saying I play board games, I was traveling this weekend and I wanted to go to a board game store, and I mentioned that to somebody and they were like, why? I'm like, I'm not
even just that, it gets to like,
But yeah, I went through a lot, and it was kind of funny because when I first did my top 10 solo board games, there was still a little bit of that thought process. Now I'm kind of like, no, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to play what I want to play. But I found a lot of you really do like solo games as well. And there's a big community in solo board gaming, and you've jumped into it hardcore.
Well, but I've played solo board, like the original Return to Dark Tower. I played that by myself, sitting at my dad's, when I go up and visit him or something, like for 2 weeks. So it's nothing new. You just don't talk. It's not that you don't talk about it. You almost don't think about it. It's like solitaire, right? You're playing solitaire cards. You sit down and do it, and you don't like, oh, look, I played solitaire. It's like, I would play games, or I would set up and do this toys or whatever it was, So, or you play cards with your family, or you play cards that are by yourself. You don't really think about it. Doesn't mean I haven't played, but that's one of the reasons I like Return to the Dark Tower. I didn't play it with anybody else necessarily. I played it and played against the tower, and it was cool because the tower, the game fought back.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's funny because even to this day, and I don't think about it this way, but I mention all the time when we do our monthly reviews, like, oh, I played a lot more games than I actually logged. I don't think to log my solo games in BG Stats. Competitive games or games with other people, I always do.
Yep.
But I seldom think about actually putting a solo board game into BG Stats.
Yeah, I think the only thing I don't put in is like Can't Stop. That one's I
played
play on BGA. It's like it's an Eagle Griffin game. I don't know who originally did it, but you roll the dice and you move. You move. You kind of like climbing the hill, so to speak, but it's not really. It's a little diamond of numbers.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But that one I don't really track.
Yeah.
Because it's so quick.
I like this goes into the problem solving kind of games, but like Shut the Box and all kinds of solitaire games that it's just trying to kind of beat your score. It's not like there's I think a lot of times with board games, you have a winning and a losing, but with games like Shut the Box and a lot of solitaire games, there's no real winning or losing. It's trying to beat your score as you go through it. I play those all the time. Like I'll sit and watch TV and like roll dice and play like Shut the Box or something similar to that all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think of that as.
Is that the one where you have like 1 through 12? And you're trying not to get the same number twice after you've closed off the number?
So the idea is you want to like close all 12 numbers. And so you have 2 die and you can roll 1 or 2 die. No, you roll your 2 die.
Right.
Oh, gosh, this is so funny. I'm thinking about it.
I've played it. But
if I don't think about it, it's not a problem.
Ago.
But you roll your die and you divide up your numbers how you want to. So it could be like if you roll a 7, you could knock down the 7 or the 3 and the 4, something like that.
Yeah, but you don't want to you can't have something that doesn't allow you to close a number off.
Yeah, and that's when it stops. And that's when you've lost. And then you add up how many points you have, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's, There's a lot of types of solo board gaming too. I think that's another thing that kind of can play into this idea of the benefits and the stigma behind them. For some, I think solo gaming is a thing where it's the game. Like the game is solo only. And so that's why maybe we play it. Whether that's for a learning purpose, a fun purpose, whatever it might be, but we still play it. Sometimes they're multiplayer games that we play just because we want to learn the game, to be able to bring it to a gaming group. And I found that with Arkham Horror that I absolutely love playing it solo because I tried to figure out how to play it so I could teach my friends.
Right.
And then turned into playing it all the time.
And it's a lot easier to play when it's co-op-ish, right? Because it's everybody against the game.
Yeah.
And I guess that's, I have played a ton of Oathsworn. I have played a ton of Kingdom Death, and I wouldn't mind you coming in for a session, but I don't want to have to sit there and play and wait on a campaign.
Yeah.
Right. Having that ability, I wouldn't have gotten all the gameplays in this month that I have if I were constantly, it took us a year to play Pandemic Legacy.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Close
wait that
to.
long for this. Like, I don't think I would, and especially these kind of games, because it would be like, oh, I don't remember how to play it, or, oh, where are we at? You know, you kind of lose some of that continuity, and you're just kind of like, you know.
Yeah, that is.
And I want to get my money out of it.
Especially when it's something like.
When they're that expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like, I am going to get my money out of these.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 2 tables set up, and I play one, and then I go play the other. Then I go back and forth now.
He really does. I can see them just past him off the distance in the room. It's like 2 8-foot tables set up side by side with.
I have
with
spent a
nothing
lot
big
more
in it.
time in the basement this month than I have before.
You must be a loser with no friends.
I have no friends.
Hey, now.
You're never around.
Sorry. There could be worse sound effects that he puts in for that, I will say.
Let's see.
But-
We can fight. Boxing. Anyway.
That doesn't work for solo board gaming videos.
No, it
'cause,
doesn't really.
I mean,
I'd be just fighting myself.
I was just saying, yeah, unless we want to talk about mental health, then that's a whole nother video. So,
That one's too long.
So
Anyway.
so recapping what we talked about. So we
Right.
talked about regulation of emotions and how board games, solo games, I think especially, can really kind of help you play through that.
Mhm.
We talked about how practicing of those stressful situations or impactful situations can play into it.
Right.
Stress relief, I think that's probably the big one that
Right.
really comes in for most of us, because I think most of us play board games because we want some kind of a community that allows an escape from daily life.
Yeah. You're either doing it to hang out with other people, or you're doing it to be like, I don't want to be bored, right? I don't want to sit and watch TV, the same thing over and over again.
Mhm.
So,
Or I just want to stop thinking about my daily responsibilities for a few moments and
Yeah.
kind of escape into something fun.
exactly.
So those are kind of the big ones that we talked about: problem solving skills, stuff like that. And and this goes for really anything in the hobby. This hobby is so broad that you don't have to do everything. You don't have to enjoy everything. I am very open and honest when I say I don't like war games. Brad knows that. Brad likes war games. He's good at them. I think. I don't know. I've never seen.
I used to be.
So I don't know.
Not
You've got
anymore.
18,000 Warhammer models that you have built and painted. I thought I would hate painting minis, and then I gave it a try because my friend convinced me it was a fun thing, and now I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much in this hobby for everybody that we don't have to do it all. We don't have to like it all. We don't have to agree on all of it. But I would like to see, especially the stigmas and stereotypes around solo board gaming coming down.
Yep, absolutely. What do you think? Do you like playing solo board games? Have you thought about it? I bet there's a game or two. If you're playing Marvel Champions, you've at least played it solo once. There might be a game like, oh yeah, I do play that,
Yeah.
Even if it's on your phone and it's a board game iteration on your phone.
Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother subject we didn't get into. Well,
Right.
you touched on BGA.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I did my top 10 BGA games,
mm-hmm.
I think last week or whatever.
Yeah. Although you don't play them all solo, I think there are some you do.
No, BGA, I'm usually playing with other people. But I like Gaia Project and some others, I would play solo just to try to understand the mechanic a little bit better. Not every game on there
Mhm.
has a solo AI bot.
Mhm.
But a few of them do, and it helps you kind of get through it.
Yeah. There are some that do have good ones. I was playing some roll and writes on BGA there for a little while.
Mhm.
And that solo, I did that one all solo. But
Yep.
anyway, so if you are a solo board gamer, do know that, well, maybe you are. You don't have to be identified as a dork, as a nerd, as lame, as having no friends, as whatever the rest of those
You can
stereotypes
be
might
identified as bad at board game friends.
Hopefully you are. Hopefully you are. So let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, friends, we would love to have you sitting down at the table talking about random things like this, board games, or just us picking on each other and Brad annoying me with all kinds of sound effects. Case in point.
Just annoying Toph makes me happy.
Oh,
Just remember, no matter how you play, whether it's solo, with family, or friends,
enjoy whatever games you are bringing to the table.
have a great night. Thanks for sticking around.